In 2026, the gaming industry changes forever. For years, people have been guessing why everything feels like it's starting to fall apart. Budgets, toxic gamers, DEI, take your pick. But those are the symptoms, not the cause. Behind the scenes, investors already know what's coming. And for the first time, so do we. We got access to investor material, the kind of data you only see in closed-door meetings. This isn't another gaming is dying video. This is the part nobody was supposed to see. 2026 might be the year AAA gaming dies, and no one is ready for it. Hello. I'm Master of the TDS.
And I'm Riding Raven.
And today, we're opening the door.
Into the Twilight Zone?
Not quite, but it's a door into the part of the industry nobody was supposed to see. Before we go any further, let's make something clear. The material came from a gaming industry executive who sat in on a private investor session. None of it is under NDA. Technically, it's public, just not something most people would ever get access to. And that's why it matters.
And before anyone panics, this is exactly why we are allowed to cover it. Sorry to disappoint all the haters hoping we get taken down.
Haters will have to cope, because this was a high-level panel with people who manage billions in gaming investment. People who fund studios, advise publishers, and quietly steer the direction of the entire industry. And they weren't holding back. They were talking openly about what's happening right now and what's coming in 2026.
And no, we're not naming our source. We like this person, we want them to keep their job. And honestly, the important part isn't who they are, it's what the investors are saying.
Exactly, and to put it lightly, they're concerned. The material lays out exactly what they expect in 2026, and none of it looks good.
Concerned is the polite version. To be blunt, they're bracing for the total collapse of the AAA industry as we know it. Yes, you heard that right. Video game Armageddon is coming.
The investors kept circling a few major pressure points they believe are going to push the industry over the edge.
And we're going to break those down in terms us mortals can understand. No finance degree required.
One of the biggest things investors are worried about hits AAA at its foundation. The rules around minors in games are tightening right now, and by April of 2026, the new COPPA compliance deadline lands.
What is COPPA, you ask? COPPA is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Protecting kids is good. Everyone agrees with that. But the updated rules don't just change what counts as children's data. They also change what games can be treated as child-directed, and that is where the real problem starts.
Originally, COPPA covered names, emails, basic identifiers. The update expands that to biometric and behavioral data. Voice patterns, eye tracking, facial analysis, movement data, basically anything a system can pull from you that can be turned into a profile and then sold to advertisers.
Advertisers getting our data isn't new, but people have no idea how constant it is. Most games collect some version of this without us even noticing, especially multiplayer, which means any studio using these systems is suddenly exposed to massive fines if they mishandle it.
And here's the catch. Companies cannot collect or process that data from minors without verified parental consent. Real verification. We've already seen platforms like YouTube roll out age verification, and now we understand why.
They're protecting themselves early. And here's the part that really matters. With biometric and behavioral data now protected, and the FTC already forcing parental consent for under 16 monetization in real cases, these changes start hitting teen data too. And unless your grandmother's knitting club is secretly a Fortnite squad, most people playing these games are teens.
So when that age group becomes the most regulated, the entire monetization framework holding AAA together gets cut off at the source. Studios now need oversight, not just for kids, but for teens as well.
Studios built on teens being their main revenue stream will have to rebuild from the ground up, and most won't survive. At that point, the studio becomes a headless chicken running around with whatever guts it had left spilled all over the floor.
Well, gather up what's left of those guts and stick a fork in that chicken, because that is only the first way AAA is getting cooked. Now, the next point investors were worried about is where things get dangerous. We talked about children and teen data, but biometric data by itself is a whole separate problem. Some states already regulate biometrics, and in those places, courts have ruled that every single biometric scan counts as its own violation.
Not per user, per scan. Every time the system pulls data from you, that's another fine. That will drain a bank account faster than a lawyer with a grudge.
To be fair, Illinois just moved to cap that kind of per-scan tracking, which tells you how insane the liability was, but investors expect other states to copy the original rule before it gets capped.
And just to put this into perspective, the average VR game scans your face about 60 times per second. Eye tracking, micro-expression, spatial orientation, all of it. It sees into your very soul.
Breaking that down, which means math time, unfortunately, 60 scans per second times 60 seconds times 60 minutes, that's 216,000 biometric captures in a single hour.
And if each one counts as a separate violation at $125,000 a pop, that's $1.08 billion from one user in 1 hour. I am never doing that math again.
You don't need to convince me. Math can go sit in the corner and think about what it's done. But I did say we're cooking that headless AAA chicken, and this is the part where it turns to charcoal.
I prefer medium well, so I'm passing on that dinner. But can I keep the guts?
No. I don't even want to know what you're going to use them for.
Fine. Anyway, in all seriousness, this is not sustainable. A single VR session could stack enough penalties to wipe out a studio instantly. And if that enforcement model goes mainstream, VR is more dead than it already looks.
Regulation is one thing, courtrooms are another. And if the first two risks weren't enough to convince you the AAA apocalypse is coming, this one will.
You've probably seen a handful of game-related lawsuits float by. A headline here, a case there, the video game addiction filings, the video games cause violence stuff, a kid spending thousands on Raid Shadow Legends using mom and dad's credit card.
Speaking of Raid Shadow Legends, this video is sponsored by...
No one, because we have taste, and Raid Shadow Legends belongs in the trash.
Know your fucking place, trash.
Bashing a terrible mobile game aside, the lawsuits you hear about aren't the real number.
Not even close.
To be blunt, even though bluntness is usually Raven's thing,
I will allow it.
there are over 100 active cases right now targeting addiction mechanics, behavior manipulation, and dark pattern monetization. Over 100! And most people have only heard of maybe 2 or 3 because the media barely touches the rest.
But even if you haven't heard of them, you will. Because 2026 is when the first major cases hit trial or settlement. And that's when we get the rulings and precedents that decide how courts treat behavioral design in games.
And these aren't small claims. These cases argue that mechanics companies use to make people spend money exploit players the same way regulated industries do.
And that might sound good. Cracking down on predatory monetization is a great thing. But when the government is the one doing the cracking, that's where things get messy.
And if even one of these lawsuits lands, studios will have to rebuild everything. Monetization, retention loops, reward pacing, the entire spine that holds AAA live service together.
And you might ask, where's the downside? Isn't this what gamers have wanted? And yes, long-term, this pushes studios toward better games, but AAA can't adapt like that on the fly.
Exactly. You can't rip out the heart of a live service economy halfway through production and expect the game to survive.
And it gets worse. If a court decides these mechanics are harmful, insurance premiums spike. Some studios won't even qualify for liability coverage.
And when that happens, where do you think they make up the difference? We're already hearing talk about $100 games. Imagine what happens once those costs start stacking.
It's not just one lawsuit. It's the beginning of a legal classification, harmful design. And once a court defines something as harmful, every publisher using it gets hit.
And the fallout isn't going to be pretty. Gamers have been warning about this for years. Investors finally agree, and AAA waited way too long to fix it.
In short, the bloodbath is coming. And it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better.
Now that we've gone through the major concerns investors have about the future, the conclusion is obvious. AAA isn't built to survive this. They built their entire system around guaranteed cash flow, and that system was predatory. We told them to change. They refused.
And now it's too late. AAA development takes 5 to 7 years. Most of the games being made right now were planned long before any of this was even on the horizon. You can't just pivot halfway through a $100 million project.
All of these restrictions and changes hit at the same time, and together they spell disaster for the AAA industry.
We've already seen publishers cutting staff and canceling projects before any of this even hit. That's not coincidence. They know they're in trouble, and they're doing whatever they can to survive.
And here's the part that stings. We warned them. Gamers warned them. We begged them to focus on gameplay and story instead of checkboxes and predatory monetization.
They either ignored the criticism or they decided they knew better. They lectured their own customers instead of listening. And now the audience has left the building, and they are not coming back.
Pushing DEI and refusing to listen is going to cost them, literally and figuratively. If they'd pushed diversity of thought instead of surface-level agenda storytelling, if they'd listened to fan criticism instead of blaming the fans, they might have had enough goodwill to survive this.
But there is no goodwill left. A studio without its players is a body without blood flow.
These changes are good in the long run, but they're a wolf in sheep's clothing, a Trojan horse. Right now, the government happens to be doing things gamers agree with, but giving them this much power over games? That's not something to take lightly.
Long term, the industry will get better. Better practices, better games. But the path to get there is not going to be pretty.
To any publishers or studios listening, you did this to yourselves.
You made your bed of nails. Time to lie in it.
Everything we've talked about sounds grim. It'll lead to good things in the end, but at what cost? Government stepping in is not exactly something we should celebrate, but there is hope.
Gaming isn't dying. The version of gaming built on manipulation, hostility towards fans, and bloated budgets is dying. And honestly, good.
When those predatory systems finally get ripped out, the studios left standing will be the ones actually making good games.
Indies walk through this mostly untouched. They don't rely on predatory loops, VR scans, or DEI-driven propaganda. None of the systems being regulated are the ones they build their games on.
And when the air clears, the studios that rise will be the ones that earn player support.
As weird as it sounds, things will get better. And gamers, for the first time in a long while, actually win.
But don't get comfortable, because before the recovery comes the collapse. In short, expect chaos. A lot of studios won't go down quietly, and many will lash out at gamers instead of taking accountability.
2026 is the impact year, the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs. AAA might be headed for extinction.
This isn't speculation. This is what investors controlling billions in gaming capital seem to be preparing for, based on hard data that's already out there. All we've done is translate it and show you not just what's happening, but why.
At least this time, the apocalypse won't be boring. It's going to be a reckoning.
Share with your crew, escape life's hell. From spooky memes to advice obscure, here's your dark solace of humor as a cure.